Oi there, deep divers. Welcome aboard for a look at a job that most folks only know from movies, the Able Seaman. You wanted the no-nonsense truth. Well, batten down the hatches because we're diving deep. We've got job descriptions, training requirements, even a sneak peek at real interview questions.
And it's way more than just movie stuff. Being an able seaman, it's a real certification, a sign of serious skill and responsibility on the open water.
So it's not just a cool title you grab after watching Pirates of the Caribbean a few too many times.
Not even close. Our sources are crystal clear. There's a whole system for becoming an able seaman. You don't just waltz onto a ship and boom, you're in charge. Usually you start as a deckhand. Got to pay your dues, learn the ropes, literally.
Makes sense, right? Wouldn't want to hand the keys to to a ship to someone who doesn't know port from starboard.
Exactly. And that climb from deckhand to able seaman, that's where all that experience comes in. Plus, a whole lot of very specialized training.
Okay, so it's not just about being strong enough to handle a storm. What kind of skills are we talking about here?
Strength is important, yeah. More like endurance, though. Able seamen got to be able to work long hours, tough conditions. But here's the thing that really caught my eye. It's this balance they strike between traditional seamanship and high-tech stuff.
Wait a minute. Technology. I thought we were talking old school compasses and, maps and charts.
Oh, that's definitely a part of it. But today's able seamen, they've got to be comfortable with electronic navigation, radar, sonar, you name it. It's a whole different world out there on the water.
Whoa. So they're tying fancy knots with one hand and troubleshooting some computer system with the other.
You got it. That blend of skills, it's essential on modern ships, our sources. They emphasize that over and over.
All right, so let's get down to brass tacks. What does an able seaman actually do on a daily basis?
Steering's part of it, for sure, but
Yeah.
there's way more to it than that. Maintaining all that navigational equipment, handling cargo, dealing with all the ins and outs of loading and unloading.
Now that you mention cargo, it really hits you, right?
Yeah.
How much of the stuff we use every day came to us by ship?
You got it. That new phone you're thinking about. The coffee you had this morning. Able seamen. They're a vital part of how that stuff gets to you.
And it's not just about getting the cargo from point A to B either, right? There's going to be a whole safety aspect to all of this.
Big time. They go through intense training for emergencies at sea. They got to know how to handle everything from rough seas to fires on board. It's about making sure the crew's safe. And the vessel, too, of course.
Sounds like you got to be quick on your feet, cool under pressure. And speaking of pressure, we managed to get a peek at some real interview questions for these able seaman hopefuls.
Oh, that's got to be good. What are they asking?
Well, one that really jumped out was, describe a challenging situation you faced at sea and how you handled it. Clearly, experience matters in this line of work.
Totally. They want to see how you problem solve when things get real, when the stakes are high. Book smarts are one thing. But knowing how to apply that knowledge when the pressure's on, that's a whole other level.
And then there was a question about physical fitness. So I guess it's not just all mental gymnastics after all.
Right. It's about having the stamina, the specific physical skills to handle what the job throws at you. Ropes, heavy equipment. It's demanding.
So far, we've established that becoming an able seaman isn't exactly a walk in the park. It's a clear path, rigorous training, takes a special kind of person. But how do you actually earn that title?
Well, our sources point to a few key things. First, you got to get formal certification, often from a country's maritime authority.
So no printing a certificate off the internet, eh? You need the real deal.
Yep, got to meet those strict standards. Then there's the training. Specialized programs covering everything from navigation and safety protocols to, how to operate all those fancy systems we talked about.
And I'm guessing that whole hands-on experience thing,
Yeah,
the deckhand apprenticeship, that plays a role too.
absolutely. Hands-on experience, it's crucial. And speaking of credentials, one certification came up again and again, the STCW.
STCW. What's that all about? Fill me in.
It stands for Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping for Seafarers. It's like the gold standard globally. Sets a baseline for able seamen everywhere, which is super important for safety and consistency in the industry.
So if you see STCW certified, you know they're not messing around. They've met a global standard, not just something local.
Exactly. It's a mark of professionalism. Means they're competent and recognized worldwide.
Okay, so we've got the career path, the demanding duties, that blend of old school and high-tech skills. It's clear this isn't just some casual gig. But I gotta ask, why would someone choose this life? What are the rewards that make all the challenges worth it?
That's where our next set of sources gets really interesting. We've actually got interviews with able seamen themselves sharing their stories and experiences.
Oh, now I'm really intrigued. Let's dive into those perspectives in part 2.
Welcome back. Before we get to those interviews with the able seamen themselves, it's worth remembering just how tough this job can be. Long hours, harsh conditions, lots of time away from home.
Yeah, exactly. So what makes someone want to do this for a living? What's the payoff?
Well, in these interviews, one thing shines through. A real sense of pride. Like, these aren't just folks punching a clock. They're skilled professionals. They take real pride in what they do. They talk about mastering those skills, that sense of accomplishment, especially from, like, navigating a big operation.
So it's almost like an art, a craft, something they've worked hard to perfect over time.
That's a great way to put it. A lot of them even call it a calling, an adventure, seeing the world, different cultures.
Hmm.
And they're contributing to global trade in a real, tangible way.
I could definitely see the appeal in that. There's something about the sea, right?
Yeah.
That romance, the freedom, exploration. It's hard to find that anywhere else.
And these interviews, they capture that perfectly. The beauty of the open ocean, the thrill of weathering a storm, and, the camaraderie, the bonds that form among the crew during those long voyages. It's more than just a job for many of them. It's a way of life.
But it can't all be sunshine and rainbows out there, can it? We've talked about the challenges, the risks of being out at sea.
Of course. And the interviews, they don't shy away from that either. They're upfront about the demands, physical, mental, being away from family and friends, and, yeah, the danger that's always present.
So what keeps them going? What outweighs all those hardships?
The word that comes up a lot is purpose. They know their work matters. It's a vital link in that whole global supply chain. The stuff that people rely on every day, they're the ones moving it.
Yeah, I could see how that'd be motivating, knowing you're not just doing a job, but actually playing a crucial role.
And there's also that personal growth side of things, facing challenges head on, building resilience, honing those problem-solving skills, overcoming obstacles. It gives them confidence.
So it's not just about moving cargo, it's about pushing yourself and discovering what you're capable of, too.
Exactly. That sense of accomplishment, of making it through tough times and coming out stronger. It seems to be a huge draw for a lot of folks in this profession.
So it's a tough gig, but one with unique rewards. Travel, adventure, a sense of community, knowing you're doing something essential.
That's a great way to sum it up. But there's one more thing to think about. The future. The maritime world, it's changing fast. Technology is advancing all the time.
Right, automation. It's the big buzzword everywhere you look. How is that impacting the Able Seaman's role?
Well, our final source tackles that head on. It's a report all about the future of seafaring. And it suggests that as ships become more high-tech, some of the tasks able seamen have traditionally done, well, they're being automated.
So are we looking at robots taking over the seas? Is the Able Seaman becoming a thing of the past?
Not quite. But the report makes it clear, able seamen, they're going to need to adapt, learn new skills if they want to stay in the game.
Okay, so what kind of skills are we talking? Coding boot camps for sailors now?
Coding? Maybe not. But
Oh.
definitely a deeper understanding of complex electronic systems. Being able to operate and maintain that stuff, it's becoming a must-have.
So tying a perfect knot isn't enough anymore. You need to be able to troubleshoot the ship's computer system, too.
Think of it as a different kind of knot to master, yeah. And data analysis skills. Those are becoming super important, too.
Data analysis on a ship. That's a new one.
Ships these days, they're generating tons of data. From sensors, from all those different systems. Able seamen, they need to make sense of that data. Identify patterns, make smart decisions.
So the Able Seaman of the future, it's like a mix of traditional seafarer and like a tech whiz.
You got it, the report. It paints a picture of a really versatile professional, comfortable with both those old school skills and cutting-edge technology.
Sounds challenging, but also pretty exciting, right? A time of change, but also a ton of opportunity.
Absolutely. It's a career path that demands constant learning,
Mhm.
always adapting. But for those who are up for the challenge, there's a lot to gain.
So for someone who might be thinking about this career, what's the big takeaway?
It's not for everyone. It takes dedication, a willingness to push yourself, but it offers rewards you won't find anywhere else. The travel, the adventure, that strong sense of purpose and community.
I think we did a good job of peeling back the layers on this job, right?
Yeah.
Often overlooked, but clearly vital. It's demanding, but the rewards, they're pretty amazing.
We've looked at the individual side, but what about the bigger picture? How does this work, the work of able seamen? How does it affect the world as a whole?
That's a great point. We've talked about what's in it for the individual, but what about their role in the global economy, the environment?
Let's dive into that in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we're back and ready for that big picture view. We've seen what it takes to be an able seaman, all the challenges and rewards, but now I'm really curious about their impact on the world, the global scale.
It's wild, isn't it? We kind of forget just how much we rely on ships and, seaborne trade, almost everything. What we use, what we wear, the stuff we buy, it all spends some time traveling by sea.
So those ships out there, they're not just pretty to look at. They're like the uh, the veins and arteries of how the whole world works.
Exactly. And able seamen, they're essential to keeping that flow going, making sure all that stuff gets where it needs to go. It's not an overstatement to say they play a crucial role in, well, in keeping the world running.
Which means their work affects all of us, whether we realize it or not.
100%. And it's not just the economic side of things either. There's a big push now for sustainability in the whole maritime industry, cutting down emissions, protecting the environment.
Yeah, I've been hearing more and more about that. Seems like a huge task, though, given how massive, how global shipping is.
Oh, it definitely is. And guess who's right there on the front lines? Able Seamen. They're the ones putting those new technologies and practices into action, the stuff that can really make a difference.
So they're not just keeping cargo moving, they're helping to keep the planet healthy, too.
Right on. Take ballast water management, for example. Super important for stopping invasive species from spreading.
Gotta admit, I wouldn't have connected those two things. Ballast water, how's that involved?
Well, ships, they take on and release ballast water to stay stable. But that water, it can have all sorts of tiny organisms in it. And when they release that water in a different part of the world, well, those organisms can become a real problem if they're invasive, mess up ecosystems, cause a ton of damage. Able seamen, they're trained to handle that water in a way that, minimizes the risk.
And it's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah,
A job that's been around for centuries is now playing such a key role in all these modern environmental issues.
I know, right? And as technology keeps changing, their part in tackling those issues, it's only going to get bigger. They're already involved in things like monitoring fuel efficiency, finding ways to make shipping greener.
It's a lot to ask of one profession, keeping the world economy moving, keeping things safe out on the water, and now dealing with global environmental challenges.
It really speaks to, how adaptable they are, how much their work is evolving.
Well, I think this has been a deep dive in the truest sense. We've gone from the individual level, those skills and challenges of being an able seaman, to their impact on, well, on everything.
And I hope we've shown folks that this job, it's more than just a job. It's really a vital part of how our world works.
Next time I see a ship, I'll definitely see it differently. I'll be thinking of those skilled folks on board, those able seamen who, well, they keep things moving in more ways than one.
And who knows, maybe someone listening is feeling inspired. Maybe they'll be looking up nautical knots later or checking out maritime academies.
Maybe there's a future able seaman out there right now. Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring.